Title: The Haunting of Whispering Pines Hotel. The Whispering Pines Hotel stood tall amidst the dense forest, its once grand facade now weathered and worn by the relentless passage of time. Nestled in the heart of the woods, it was a place forgotten by most, its existence known only to those who stumbled upon it by chance, or those who sought the mysteries hidden within its walls. Legend spoke of dark secrets veiled within its corridors, of whispers that echoed through the halls long after the voices had ceased to exist. It was said that the hotel held the souls of those who had perished within its confines, trapped for eternity in a limbo between the realms of the living and the dead. Few dared to venture into Whispering Pines, and those who did seldom returned unchanged. Yet despite the warnings and the eerie tales, there were always those who sought the thrill of the unknown, drawn to the hotel like moths to a flame. Among those who dared to enter was a young couple, Sarah and David. They had heard the rumors surrounding Whispering Pines, but their curiosity outweighed their fear. With backpacks slung over their shoulders and excitement dancing in their eyes, they pushed open the creaking doors and stepped into the dimly lit lobby. The air was thick with dust, and the faint scent of decay lingered in the atmosphere. Cobwebs adorned the corners, and the once opulent furnishings were now covered in a layer of grime. Despite its dilapidated state, there was an undeniable charm to the hotel, a sense of history that permeated its every corner. "Isn't this place incredible?" Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible above the eerie silence. David nodded, his gaze wandering over the faded wallpaper and the ornate chandeliers that hung from the ceiling. "It's like stepping back in time." They made their way to the front desk, where a dusty ledger lay open, its pages yellowed with age. Sarah reached out tentatively, her fingers tracing the faded ink as she flipped through the entries. "Looks like nobody's been here in years," she murmured, her brow furrowing in confusion. "Perhaps we have the whole place to ourselves," David replied, a hint of excitement in his voice. With that thought in mind, they ascended the grand staircase, their footsteps echoing through the empty halls. They chose a room at random, pushing open the door to reveal a chamber shrouded in darkness. Sarah fumbled for the light switch, and with a click, the room was bathed in a soft glow. The furnishings were antiquated yet elegant, and a large canopy bed dominated the space. "It's perfect," Sarah exclaimed, a smile spreading across her face. David nodded in agreement, but his gaze was drawn to the large mirror that hung above the fireplace. His reflection stared back at him, but there was something unsettling about the image, a flicker of movement in the darkness beyond. "Did you see that?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Sarah turned to look, but there was nothing there, only the empty room bathed in moonlight. "You're just imagining things," she reassured him, though a shiver ran down her spine. That night, as they lay in bed, the whispers began, soft at first, like the rustling of leaves in the wind, but steadily growing louder until they filled the room with their eerie cadence. Sarah tossed and turned, her sleep plagued by restless dreams. She found herself wandering the halls of the hotel, her footsteps echoing through the darkness as she searched for something she could not name. David slept fitfully beside her, his brow furrowed in concentration. In his dreams, he was pursued by shadowy figures, their eyes glowing with malevolence as they closed in on him from all sides. When morning came, they awoke to find themselves exhausted and disoriented. The events of the previous night seemed like nothing more than a distant memory, a trick of the mind brought on by the oppressive atmosphere of the hotel. Determined to make the most of their stay, they set out to explore the grounds, venturing deeper into the forest than they had dared before. The trees seemed to loom closer, their branches twisting and contorting in unnatural shapes. As they wandered, they stumbled upon an overgrown path that led to a clearing in the woods. At its center stood a dilapidated gazebo, its once white paint now peeling and cracked. "What do you think this place was used for?" Sarah asked, her voice tinged with curiosity. David shrugged, his gaze fixed on the ancient structure. Perhaps it was where they held weddings or other events. They stepped inside the gazebo, the air heavy with the scent of decay. In the center of the clearing, they found a weathered gravestone, its inscription barely legible after centuries of neglect. Sarah knelt beside it, brushing away the dirt to reveal the words carved into the stone. It says, "Elizabeth Whitaker, beloved wife and mother, died, 3667. David frowned, his mind racing with questions. Do you think she's one of the spirits that haunt the hotel? Before Sarah could reply, a chill swept through the clearing, causing them both to shiver involuntarily. The air grew thick with tension, and the once peaceful surroundings seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. We should go back, Sarah said, her voice trembling with fear. David nodded in agreement, but as they turned to leave, a figure appeared before them, its form shrouded in darkness. Who are you? David demanded, his voice wavering with uncertainty. The figure said nothing, but its eyes gleamed with an otherworldly light. With a start, Sarah realized that they were not alone in the clearing, that countless spectral forms lurked in the shadows, their eyes fixed on the intruders with silent malice. Run! She cried, seizing David's hand and fleeing into the forest with all the speed they could muster. Behind them, the whispers grew louder, filling the air with their haunting refrain. Branches clawed at their clothes and roots snaked out from the forest floor, threatening to ensnare them in their grasp. They ran until their lungs burned and their legs grew weak until they could run no longer. Finally, they collapsed on the forest floor, gasping for breath as they stared up at the canopy of leaves overhead. We have to get out of here, David said, his voice hoarse with desperation. Sarah nodded, her eyes wide with fear. But how? We're trapped in this nightmare. As if in answer to her question, a voice spoke from the darkness, its words echoing through the trees with a chilling clarity. You cannot escape, it whispered, sending shivers down their spines. You are bound to this place for all eternity. They huddled together, their hearts pounding in their chests as they waited for the inevitable. In the distance, they could hear the sound of footsteps drawing near, the echoes of countless souls converging on their location. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the whispers ceased, leaving behind an eerie silence that hung heavy in the air. Slowly, tentatively, they rose to their feet, their eyes scanning the forest for any sign of danger. But the clearing was empty, the spectral forms gone without a trace. With a sense of